Good afternoon. I would like to welcome all of you to the last session of this conference. And before we proceed, I would like also to thank the organizers for the invitation and the opportunity they give us to participate in this conference. The topic of the last session of this conference is linking natural and cultural heritage management, the green dimension. The project is implemented with the support of Ecumenical Patriarchate, and today is represented from the Father John Chryssavgis, who is going to give a speech for this session.
Let me begin by expressing my thanks and congratulations to the organizers of this International Symposium on Monuments in Nature. It's a special privilege to be invited as a clergyman and as a theologian to contribute to this dialogue and discussion on connections between culture and nature. Over the past decades, the world has witnessed alarming ecological degradation, increasing failure to implement environmental policies, and an ever-widening gap between rich and poor. But during the same period, perhaps no worldwide religious leader has been so recognized for his dedication in confronting the ecological crisis as our own Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew. It has been an honor for me to work closely alongside His All Holiness in this sacred ministry and mandate. The environmental initiatives of the Ecumenical Patriarchate date back to the 1980s with a number of conferences and symposia. The most important event was probably in 1989, which inaugurated the designated day of prayer for the preservation, for the protection of the environment, with the first annual patriarchal encyclical on September 1st under the late Ecumenical Patriarch Demetrius. And then following the election of Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew, all Orthodox churches heeded this call to prayer in 1992, as did soon afterward the Conference of European Churches in 1997, the World Council of Churches in 2002, and in 2017, Pope Francis and the Archbishop of Canterbury adopted the same day for the Roman Catholic Church worldwide and the Anglican Communion, respectively. These and other groundbreaking initiatives by His All Holiness, including a series of international conferences, symposia, summits, and seminars from 1991, when he was elected, to this day, earned the Patriarch a number of awards and acclamations, while he was also dubbed the Green Patriarch by Al Gore and the world media for persistently proclaiming the primacy of spiritual values in determining an environmental ethos. Time magazine even named him one of the world's most influential people in this field. But the hallmark of the Patriarch's initiatives is not success. I'll talk about this in a moment. It's actually humility. It's about recognizing and reminding us about connections. In beholding the larger picture, the Ecumenical Patriarch recognizes that he stands before something greater than himself. In fact, something greater than his or any other church or faith. One important lesson that the Patriarch has conveyed over the last 30 years is that climate change is not only a political or a technological issue, it is primarily and fundamentally a religious, a spiritual issue, which means that religion has a vital role to play. In fact, any spirituality that remains uninvolved with the outward creation is ultimately uninvolved also with the inward mystery. So in all that he says and does, the Patriarch is always aware that everyone, without exception, irrespective of confessional or religious persuasion, everyone must be included. Every discipline, must be included. And the patriarch is, of course, also aware that environmental issues are very intimately related to social issues, to war and peace, to social justice and human rights, to poverty and unemployment. Because the way we treat the earth and its elements reflects the way we treat people, especially the poor. The way we respect the earth and its elements reflects the way that we respect people, especially the most vulnerable. In religious circles, that's called eco-justice. In fact, this interconnectedness reminds us that the earth itself first unites us all before any doctrinal, political, racial, cultural, or other differences. We may or may not share religious convictions. We may or may not share ethnic cultures, but we do share a common experience of the environment. So creation brings us divided, insulated believers, and by the same token, us divided, insulated citizens, and even us divided, insulated disciplines before a common task that we must face together. It's all about, and this is what I want to focus on today, it's all about perceiving connections. These connections are what we have to communicate to our communities, and in the case of the church, to our parishes. For instance, first of all, connections between our faith and our life. Drawing connections between the liturgy and nature may have seemed natural for people in previous generations, but in our age, the liturgy has been separated from the material or social world. Yet at the heart of the commitment of the Orthodox Church to creation care is the conviction that the world itself is a sacrament. For St. Maximus the Confessor in the 7th century, it's a cosmic liturgy, a profound mystery that reveals the transcendent God in tangible creation. Second, it's about drawing connections between our church and other churches, other faiths, other people, because while people often think of ecology as leaves and bees or sun and soil, it's not just that. It's about the whole social nexus around them, which means that whenever we narrow life, whether religious life or professional life, to ourselves and our own interests, we are neglecting our vocation to transform all of creation. Third, it's about drawing connections between this world and the next. Often Orthodox preachers will talk about saving the soul, but very little do they talk about transforming the world. Our aim is to realize the words of the Lord's Prayer that God's will may be done on earth as in heaven. In conventional, mostly conservative Western theological circles, eschatology, as it's called, the belief in the kingdom of heaven or the end times or the apocalypse, eschatology sometimes implies permission to disregard, discard, and even destroy nature with a view to its ultimate restoration and resurrection by God. But that's not the Christian worldview. That's certainly not the Orthodox worldview, where the other world should never be disassociated, disconnected from this world. The way we treat this life determines what we believe about the next life. The way we profess heaven defines how we perceive the earth. Fourth, it's about drawing connections between ecology and economy, and between economy and ethics. It's about understanding the impact of our choices, our habits, our lifestyles. Climate change can only be reversed or resolved by addressing the moral roots of the ecological crisis. Otherwise, we're only dealing with symptoms. And furthermore, it's about drawing connections between previous, present, and future generations. That is surely a vital part of preserving cultural monuments too. As we've been taught by the pandemic, no one is saved unless everyone is saved. So we have an obligation to leave behind a balanced, if not a better world for our children. Tragically, though, we may be the first generation in history that will leave behind a degraded, devastated world for the next generation. And finally, it's about drawing connections between ecology and science. That's something else that the pandemic taught us in a painful way. We must listen to and learn from other disciplines, all disciplines, especially science. I remind people in the church often that we theologians came to the table of climate change relatively late. In fact, often with reluctance and even resistance. But as I've noted several times, the Greek word for crisis implies judgment, krisis. We will be judged by our response to phenomena that shape our lives, whether COVID-19 or especially climate change. And I say especially because the greatest threat to our planet, the defining issue of our time, is not the novel coronavirus, but climate change. The growing but neglected toll from rising global temperatures will actually eclipse the current number of deaths from all infectious diseases combined if climate change is not constrained. That's why in the wake of the pandemic, even the World Economic Forum called for a great reset of capitalism, arguing that sustainability will only be achieved through drastic lifestyle changes. You see, as even zealous Orthodox bishops learned the hard way from the pandemic, we cannot play politics, and we certainly cannot play God with science, which is about the health of people. And by the same token, we cannot play politics, and we certainly cannot play God with climate change, which is about the health of our planet. The vital expansion of these connections that your discipline and science, the science of cultural preservation and restoration, what you contribute is also critical. We must appreciate and advance the fundamental and intimate connection, as well as the need for integral and constructive dialogue between nature and culture. And you achieve this through your invaluable and admirable projects in Greece and Cyprus, as well as Bulgaria and Albania. Preserving historical sites and promoting sustainable solutions are part and parcel of the ecological language that all of us are called to speak. And that means that integrating cultural heritage and ecological sustainability in urban as well as in rural areas, in historical as well as in contemporary sites, should be part of our development changes and goals. You and I may take this for granted, and indeed the Patriarchate and UNESCO may understand this very well, but for the broader political and economic world, it's a paradigm shift that we must constantly recognize and reiterate. The implications of urbanization and globalization, the impact of tourism and climate change, the devastation of natural disaster and human conflict. All of these have profound consequences for the way we understand and the way we uphold our policies of equity and inclusivity, as well as our perspectives on public spaces and social cohesion. Which is why the UN Sustainability and Developmental Goals include a recently adopted in 2015 an explicit heritage objective which calls for making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, sustainable, by strengthening efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. So the UN, too, acknowledges the connections, that culture and cultural heritage are integrally connected to climate change and energy issues, as well as health and poverty reduction. Of course, all of this takes time, and it has taken time to expand the notion of cultural heritage from unique monuments identified as objects of art to historical treasures, even intangible expressions of culture and heritage. But time is something that the Church knows how to handle. Memory, mnimi, is something the Church knows demonstrate that it's possible to transcend the false dilemma between development and preservation, between progress and sustainability. The Church must learn, and in turn, the Church must remind society that a balanced management or economy, economia, in the sense of careful and cautious stewardship, in terms of nomin tatu iku, a balanced management of natural resources and historical assets enhances social cohesion and economic growth. Let me humbly suggest, as I close, that it's the vocation of all of us to strive for these fundamental connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Father, for your meaningful opening speech of this session. And it is well understood that nature and culture are closely related. Both have a vital role to determine who we are and how we see the world. And we need to preserve both in order to build a cohesive, resilient world for the future. The European territory includes many sites with great historical and archaeological importance, many of which also have nature values and are for this reason part of the Natura 2000 work. In the context of this session, we are going to present important forest areas which are part of the European network of protected areas, Natura 2000. I would like to welcome the first speaker of this session, Dr. Charalampos Christodoulou, a conservator of forest from the Department of Forest of Cyprus, and is going to present in situ and ex situ conservation actions of Natura 2000 sites of Cyprus, the case of Pafos Forest. Mr. Christodoulou.
My presentation will deal with in situ and ex situ conservation actions in Natura 2000 sites in Cyprus, with the emphasis on the Pafos forest. The establishment of the Natura 2000 network in Cyprus started in 1999 with the A Life Countries project. And by the time that Cyprus joined the EU in 2004, since till now, there are 63 Natura 2000 sites designated. As you can see on the map, we have the Turkish occupied area in the north, in pink color, the area under Cyprus government control, and the British base areas, where in the Turkish occupied area, the acquis communautaire does not, it is suspended, whereas in the sovereign base areas, it does not apply. Therefore, we have, as you can see on the map, we have the 63 sites distributed in the area under Cyprus government control, and they cover 18% of the total area of the island, whereas if we consider the area that it is controlled by the legal government, it is 31%, a very high percentage of Natura 2000 network. The Pafos Forest is the largest site by far in this network. It is located in the western part of the Troodos range and has an area of 601 kilometers, accounting for 6.5% of the island. As a result of the biodiversity importance of this site, it has been designated both at a national and regional level as a protected area. According to forest law, 2 sites in Pafos Forest have been designated as a nature reserve, the highest protection status according to the forest law. And it is worth mentioning that one of these sites, it was designated in 1984, and actually it was the first protected area with legal status. Later on, 2 micro-reserves, which are shown with red color on the map, were designated. Now, in terms of the EU level, Pafos Forest has been designated as a special protection area under the Birds Directive, the whole site, and the largest part of it as a site of community importance under the Habitats Directive. Regarding the diversity of the site of Pafos Forest, we can say that the flora of the site consists of about 700 indigenous plant species and subspecies, which account for almost 43% of the flora of the island. Of these, 60 are endemic and 2 are local, that is restricted within the boundary limits of Pafos Forest. Also, there are 31 plant species which are threatened out of the 238 included in the Red Data Book of the Flora of Cyprus, and 3 plants that are included in Annex 2 of the Habitat Directive, as well as 15 Annex 1 habitats of the total identified 42 habitats in Cyprus. The last 2 categories imply that the member state has to designate sites for their protection. And we can see these beautiful plants, the local endemic of Pafos Forest, Ranunculus gicoensis and Erysimum gicoticum, both their species name originating from Gico Monastery, because they are found in the close vicinity of the area. The fauna of the site is also rich. We have 28 mammals. The endemic Cyprus mouflon is the largest and most important one, as well as most of the bat species that are found in Cyprus. More than 100 bird species, including the Bonelli seagull, the griffon vulture, Accipiter gentilis, and many other small birds, and 18 reptiles with the Hierophis cypriensis, the endemic with snail, having its best area of appearance in Pafos Forest. 3 amphibians and a very, very large number of insects as a result of the habitat and microhabitat diversity of Pafos Forest. Now, regarding in situ and ex situ conservation actions, they focus on conservation of habitats and species for which the area of Pafos Forest is important. And the priorities can be summarized as follows. We have 2 important priority habitats, the endemic Cedrus brevifolia forest, which is confined in Pafos Forest and nowhere else, and the large occurrence of the low forest of the endemic oak species, Quercus alnifolia, as well as species included in the annexes of the Birds and Habitat Directive, and threatened and endemic species mostly found within the area of Pafos Forest. In the following slides, we shall see important conservation actions that have been undertaken so far through co-funded projects. At first, we had the preparation of the management plan of Pafos Forest under an EEA grant, which set the management objectives and emphasized the conservation priorities on biodiversity. Under the same project, we had the management plan for Cyprus mouflon and monitoring plans for habitats, plant and animal species, which are important for Pafos Forest. Afterwards, in the frame of PlanNet project, which aimed to the establishment of plant micro-reserves, that is, small areas for the protection of threatened species, we had the establishment in Pafos Forest of 2 micro-reserves, as shown earlier in the map. The first one was for the protection of the rare plant species Arabis kennedy and the Ceturus brevifolia forest, and the second for the low forest vegetation of Quercus alnifolia. In the frame of this project, there was also ex situ conservation by establishing at Troodos Botanic Garden these 2 species, the Arabis kennedy and Ceturus brevifolia, and some seeds lots of were collected and stored in the seed bank at Amianos. Now, the project Ecology, which stands for improving the conservation status of fauna species in Cyprus, implemented also conservation actions in Pafos Forest. There was construction of ponds in order to help reptiles survive the dry seasons and facilitate their dispersal and connection with other populations. And there was repair of old building in forestations and installation of bat boxes, thermal traps, panels on the windows that provide safe roosting sites on bat species, as you can see on the photographs. Continuing with Ecology, there was construction of dry stone walls to help invertebrates have safe shelter and facilitate their dispersal. And there was plantation of broadleaf species in different places in Pafos Forest to improve landscape and vegetation mosaic in order to help invertebrates and to raise public awareness. Several broadleaf trees were signposted. The project Life Petros aimed at the sustainable conservation management of the protected habitat with the 4-digit code 9590, which is the code of the Ceturus brevifolia forest included in Annex 1 of Habitats Directive. And we have to say that the typical species is Ceturus brevifolia, which is endemic to Cyprus, and it is also included in the Red Data Book and classified as vulnerable. The major threats that both the habitat and the species face is climate change, soil erosion, forest fire, as a result of the fact that Ceturus brevifolia is a coniferous, resiniferous, highly flammable tree, the habitat fragmentation mainly as a result of human activities, pest infestation, and competition by other species. The conservation actions implemented in the frame of this project were the implementation of targeted silvicultural treatments, particularly in areas of plantations of Ceturus brevifolia, so as to enhance the vitality of trees against competition, especially of the demanding species Venus brutia and Quercus alnifolia. There was restoration of the structure and expansion of the habitat through planting and seeding, sowing seeds at different places, and infrastructure and practices to prevent fire, to enhance fire protection. There was intensification of patrolling of personnel and construction of water tanks, new fire breaks, closures of roads, changes on vegetation, etc. There was also improvement of habitat resilience through controlling of harmful species, mainly insects, by placing traps and promoting natural predators through establishing artificial nests for all species and bats. The project Life Modelis aimed at the resolving critical threats for Bornelli seagull population in East Mediterranean, especially for Greece and Cyprus. And the actions that have been implemented in Pafos Forest are the reduction of disturbance near breeding site of the breeding sites of the birds by establishing restrictions of access at these sensitive sites, and the increase of prey availability through habitat management, which is the creation of vegetation clearance in dense pine forest in order to promote herbaceous vegetation and improve food availability for Bornelli seagull. Another project was the CARE Mediflora project, which was implemented in 6 large Mediterranean islands, from Cyprus to Baleares. This project aimed to improve the conservation status of threatened plant species in different Mediterranean islands. The case for the Pafos Forest, there was only ex situ conservation by seed collection and storage in 2 different seed banks of 26 threatened species, 21 endemic, and 100 indigenous species. In total, 218 seed accessions were collected from Pafos Forest. And the last one is the Life IP feces, which started actually in late 2019 and will last for 10 years. The aim of the project is to improve the conservation status of species and habitats of community importance through actions in the whole Natura 2000 network in Cyprus. Currently, we have the preparatory actions involving mapping and monitoring of populations implemented, which will identify the conservation measures which are needed and the locations where to be implemented. For Pafos Forest, there will be additional conservation measures in relation to flora, fauna, and habitats according to the priorities that will be identified, and control of invasive species. Finishing my presentation, I present 2 plant species named after Pafos Forest, 2 endemics actually in the area, Papaver paphium and Trifolium campestre. Also, I would like to thank my colleagues Haris Nicolaou and Herodotos that have provided photographs for the preparation of the presentation. And I would like to request that if it is possible that I shall leave the session a bit earlier. So if there are any questions, it will be easier to answer them now instead of waiting later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christodoulou, for your...
Thank you, Mr. Christodoulou. If there are any questions, because due to other commitments, has to leave this online session. For Mr.
I may be connected until 3:30, but later on I have to go.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I think it would be good to address any questions that you might have to Dr. Christodoulou right now, as Dr. Christodoulou and Father Chryssavgis have to leave in a while. Is there someone who would like to talk on this topic? I think that it was a very interesting presentation, Dr. Christodoulou, and you gave also an insight of what might the most of the public do not know on Cyprus. And I think that the most of the persons enjoyed what you presented as well as we did. Is there someone who would like to ask something, Dr. Christodoulou? No? Father John Chryssavgis, I have to say that I was impressed by your presentation, by the theological aspect and the insight that you offered to us on such an interesting topic. And I think that all the presentations until now gave a special importance to that dimension of nature that we need to see from another point of view. Therefore, we are really indebted to what you have done for us, what you have prepared for us, and for Mo.Na, and we are looking forward also to seeing your paper published in the electronic proceedings that are going to follow. Is there someone that has a question for Father John Chryssavgis?
I just have to say I was really delighted to see the beautiful eagles that Cyprus has. I'd never thought about that before. My own background, my mother was Cypriot, so I've been to Cyprus, but I have eagles in my own backyard here. We live close to some isolated islands, but to connect the eagle with Cyprus was a particular joy.
And of course, your connection to the Ecumenical Patriarchate brings you near to the two-headed eagle.
Exactly. I was going to say that, but I thought, thank you.
Dr. Christodoulou, we do not have in Cyprus a two-headed eagle, except the beautiful frescoes of Cyprus that we saw yesterday from Dr. Eliades.
Yes. Yeah. And I would like to say to Father Chryssavgis that I was impressed by his presentation and the way he connected these two important issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the spirit, I think, that the Ecumenical Patriarch has imbued in us for 30 years now. So it's become second nature to try and do this, which is not easy. We forget the connections because we are all sort of focused on our own areas of importance, but it's so important to open our eyes a little more broadly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you, for your presentations, and we are looking forward to receiving your papers for the proceedings. And we proceed now to the next speaker, who is Nikos Kassinos, Forest Officer First Class. And he will talk on the conservation actions of Natura 2000 sites of Cyprus, of course, for the case of Troodos National Forest Park. And he will underline the importance of this site for the works of the Department of Forests. And Dr. Kassinos, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My presentation is about the important habitat and species of Troodos National Forest Park and the measures and actions that are taken in order to provide a favorable conservation status. Troodos National Forest Park, it is one of the most important areas of Cyprus with high ecological and environmental values. It's located in the heart of Troodos mountain range and was designated as a national forest park in 1992. The greater part of the park has been included in the European Union of Protected Areas, Natura 2000. The entire park is a state forest, and therefore it is managed by the Department of Forest of Cyprus. The site is characterized by the occurrence of important elements of the island, with national and European ecological value, such as 11 habitat types of Annex 1 of the Habitats Directive, 4 of which are priority habitats. It hosts 5 plant species of Annex 2 of the Habitats Directive, 3 priority ones, 6 of the 22 strictly protected plant taxa of the Berg Convention, as well as 21 threatened taxa based on IUCN list. The park, with an area of about 1% of the island, hosts the largest number of native and endemic plants comparing to any other area of Cyprus. It is one of the 13 plant diversity hotspots in the Mediterranean, with about 750 indigenous plants recorded, 70 endemics, of which 10 species are local endemics and 33 endangered species. The fauna of the park is particularly rich in the total numbers as well in rare species. The park supports the only population of Loxia curvirostra in Cyprus and the major population of the endemic species Gertia brachydactyla dorothea. It provides important habitats for the endemic birds Oenanthe cypriaca and Periparus ater cypriotes too. It is also an important site for the Cyprus muflon, the endemic snake Hierophis cypriensis, and other fauna species, especially bat species. The geological characteristics of Troodos are of special importance with great scientific and educational value. The Troodos ophiolite complex covers an area of around 32,000 square kilometers, and it is formed the core or foundation upon which the island of Cyprus is built 10 million years ago. It is one of the best developed ophiolites in the world and has influenced to a considerable extent the idea concerning the formation of oceanic crust and upper mantle of the Earth. In order to secure a favorable conservation status of important habitat and species of the park, a number of measures and actions are implemented mainly in the context of live projects and other co-funded projects as well as through national funds, which all are in line with the European Action Plan. The project Conservation Management in Natura 2000 Sites of Cyprus was the first attempt of sound scientific management on these sites, with the main objective the implementation of urgent actions in order to secure a favorable conservation status for certain priority habitats and species and contribute to the capacity building for the future management of the Natura 2000 sites of Cyprus. The project implemented a number of pilot management works, like the pilot management of the black pine forest, the protection of pit grasslands and serpentinophilous grasslands of Troodos National Forest Park, and protection of the population of 3 priority flora species, like Chionotoxa lochia and Binguicula crystallina, and enhancement of the population of Arabis kennedie. Troodos pit grasslands, it is an extremely rare habitat type, which it is located only at 2 neighboring sites of Troodos National Forest Park and nowhere else in the world. Endangered, endemic, and other important plant species are found in this habitat type. For the protection of this priority habitat type, appropriate fencing, demarcation, and signposting of the 2 pit grassland sites was implemented in order to prevent the uncontrollable cars and visitors' access. Also, moving a number of tables and the playing ground found the existing excursion sites in order to fence the area and to remove the excursionists from the protected areas. The unique geology of the area is strongly related with the presence of rare and endemic flora species. The most representative example of this relation is the existence of the serpentinophilous grasslands habitat type, which the sites are distributed at the highest part of the park. That is the area occupied by the serpentine rocks and occurs at a large opening of the black pine forest in the form of small scattered patches. The characteristic species of the habitat are Akinos troodi, Onosma troodi, Kinoglossum troodi, and Alisum troodi, which are local endemics to the National Forest Park of Troodos. Also, other important species participating to this habitat type. For the protection of the habitat, mapping of 182 spots in total was implemented. Production and distribution of the maps for administrative purposes just to prevent the accidental destruction of these communities by construction works. 9 areas were signposted with boards and with the establishment of numbered wooden poles at their perimeter. And finally, an informative signboard for the public was established close to the nature trail. A priority habitat type of Pinus nigra subspecies Palasiana forest, black pine forest. The forest constitutes a priority habitat type, and the greatest part of the black pine forest lays within the National Forest Park of Troodos. The black pine, as well as other plant species that exist in the higher latitudes of Troodos, will be the first to be negatively affected by climate change. Conservation actions focus on the expansion of the habitat and enhancement of the natural regeneration of the species. The reduction of competition pressure, mainly from the Calabria pine, which is the main competitor of the black pine forest, by removing all citrus and saplings at the traditional zone between the two species. Restoration of the habitat by planting seedlings produced with local seeds, the exclusion of the park visitors, and in the context of this project also, 20 permanent sample plots we are established for monitoring and data collection about the germination capacity, survival, and establishment of natural regeneration. Also, 2 digital meteorological stations established on the spot for the collection of meteorological data, such as temperature and humidity. And of utmost importance is the collection and storage of genetic material of the species in seed bank. For the protection of the population of Hyonotoxalochia, Pinguicula crystallina, and enhancement of the population of Arabis kennedia, during the 3-year implementation of this monitoring plan, all the known colonies were mapped and new colonies were located. Moreover, the population of the plants estimated by individual count. Reproduction success was also estimated and habitat status evaluated. Site posting was implemented for all species, mainly in order to prevent destruction of the plants by trapping or by any construction works. And for the plant species, Arabis kennedia, fencing at selected locations was implemented and establishment of 3 new subpopulations. The project, Juniper CY, was the first project implementing active conservation measures for the long-term protection and restoration of the priority habitat endemic forest with juniper species in Cyprus. In the context of this project, complete monitoring and management plans were designed specifically for the juniperus habitats in each Natura 2000 sites. Conservation measures include visitor impact assessment, fire prevention, enhancement of juniper natural regeneration, visitor management interventions and infrastructure, ex situ conservation and propagation. The most important ex situ conservation actions of this project that will contribute to the long-term survival of the juniper forest in Cyprus was the creation of a seed bank at Troodos Botanical Garden, where seed lots from all 4 habitat keystone taxa have been stored. Protocols on seed storage, germination, growth, and outplanting of juniper species were also prepared. The aim of the project, Care Mediflora, was the conservation of the threatened plants of the flora of the Mediterranean islands. The conservation actions in Cyprus include seed collection for threatened and endemic species and storage in seed banks, translocation of species to new locations, reintroduction to locations where the species has been extinct, control of competitive vegetation, and establishment of restriction barriers to control access. The project Biodiversity Conservation in Restoration and Management of the Amiantos Asbestos Mine in the park was funded by the financial mechanisms of the European Economic EEA grants, and the overall objective of the project was to contribute to halting loss of biodiversity through improvement or restoration and management practices in the Amiantos Asbestos mine, taking into consideration, of course, the importance of the site, of the area. The main conservation action of this project was the restoration of an area of 13 hectares around the mine core using the new methods like hydroseeding that adopted after discussion with and detailed review of used methods by the experts. Restoration includes stabilization, reshaping of waste, transport and covering with Natura topsoil, ground preparation, planting and sowing, hydroseeding or thatching and tending. In addition to measures provided in other activities for the fauna of the area, in the context of the previous project, some direct measures were implemented to favor wildlife conservation, such as establishment of artificial bird nests, provision of water points for wildlife, planting of fruit trees, sowing of legumes and other herbaceous plants, improvement of bat habitat, and construction of stone walls. The Troodos forest, today as a national forest park, it enjoys stricter protection and more careful management. 4 areas of the forest have been designated nature reserve, and they are under protection for the preservation of the biodiversity, species, and habitats they host. The entire forest has been designated a special protection area and also, at the same time, a site of community interest for the protection of plant and animal species and habitat types of community interest they host. Management of the park is in line with the principles and requirements of the Habitats and Birds Directive for the preservation and restoration of species and habitats. All known habitat types of the park, especially the priority habitats, rare at European level, are properly managed and protected in order to maintain a favorable conservation status. This is a main management objective, not only for sites of community interest, but also for the entire forest area. Thank you for your attention. Many thanks to my colleagues, Charalampos Christodoulou and Haris Nicolaou, for those beautiful pictures for the needs of this presentation.
We thank you, Mr. Kassinos, for the presentation and for these insights for Cyprus. And we proceed to our next speaker, Mr. Andreas Antoniou, who is Forest Officer of the Department of Forest in Cyprus. And Mr. Antoniou is going to talk on Akamas National Forest Park, Cyprus biodiversity hotspot, a very interesting project that is being carried out by the Department of Forests. And in the first opportunity that our friends are going to have to come to Cyprus, Akamas is a place that they need in any way to visit. And it's one of the very important places that we have in the very parts of the Republic of Cyprus. Mr. Antoniou, you have the speech, the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Dear distinguished guests, dear participants, fellow colleagues, I would like in my turn to express my sincere thanks for the Mo.Na project for inviting us to participate in this conference. We will present a brief overview of the history of Akamas National Forest Park, which we consider as one of the best biodiversity hotspots we have in Cyprus. This is my country, Cyprus. It's situated in the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. It has an area of 9,251 square kilometers, and with the highest peak reaching up to 1,951 meters. As you can see, Akamas is situated on the western part of the island. You can see the green delimitation line of the National Forest Park. Akamas National Forest Park was declared as a forest in 1940s by the colonial British administration. And in 2016, the Council of Ministers of the Republic of Cyprus declared the area as a National Forest Park. The total area of the National Forest Park is 7,1762 hectares. We have to note here that Akamas forest was managed far beyond the declaration according to the forest law as a forest, which was done in 1940s. And this, we can see here an evidence of this forest management. On the lower right corner of this map, you can see the signature of Boville, which was the director of the forestry department in 1903. Additionally, on the left image, we can see a letter of the process of bringing into court some trespassers that were in the forest. So again, we can see a more clear view of the Akamas National Forest Park. This is the area. Akamas means the one who's not getting tired, and it derives from the Greek words that our colleagues from Greece can easily understand. We have many legends in Akamas, but the most prominent one is that the area was taken its name by Akamas, the son of Theseus and Phaedra, who was settled in Cyprus after the Trojan War. Another legend in the area, which is one of the most famous, is the one about Aphrodite and Adonis, that they enjoyed their love in the Akamas forest until Adonis was killed by a wild boar. According to Ptolemy Hephaestion, the wild boar was Apollon disguised. Here are some interesting artistic paintings, sculptures that inspired the Renaissance people to create. Another one here, and on our right you can see the map that we have these locations that the Adonis and Aphrodite were having their activities. We can elaborate furthermore in the break if somebody wants some more information. So, as regards archaeological sites in Akamas, we can see on this map a series of recorded areas of the two tables that we have in Cyprus, according to the Department of Archaeology, and also areas that we have many ruins. The most famous ones we have, it's starting from the top to the bottom, it's Fontana Amorosa in number 1. Number 2 is Aios Kononas. Number 3 is Pyrgos της Ρήγαινας. Number 4, the Baths of Aphrodite. Number 5, Johnny, which we have an ancient port in the sea. Varathro Agama, which is actually a pit. You have to know speleology to manage to get in this pit. Number 7, Lara area, where we have also the turtle nesting sites. Aios Georgios area, which we have many ancient tombs, and the Geronissos area, which is the Cleopatra's palace, Cleopatra of Egypt. This map, which is not so clearly shown, it was made in 1941 by the Department of Forestry, which shows that it was the first organized actions for managing the area. You can see here that with the green, with the yellow color, the area was marked and protected as a reserve area for fuel wood for the people living in the adjacent habitat areas. Also, Akamas was used by many people for gathering fuel and selling it in the nearby cities. This shows the longitudinal history of interaction between humans and the environment. This is Mr. Nicolis, the only one person that I know that he was born in Akamas, and he's living still in Akamas and practicing. He's a shepherd actually, and he has his farm in the Akamas forest. Here we can see we had a small discussion about Akamas, and I would like to play this small video. It lasts about 1 minute and 40 minutes, so we can see what he told us. Ναι, μίλα, όπως μου τα είπες τώρα, είναι τα ζώα είχε μες στον Ακάμα.
Είχε βόδια, είχε άλογα, είχε γαϊδούρια, τσούρες, κουέλες, χείρους. Ο παππούς μου είχε με άδεια αγριόχειρο, αλλά έτσι ήταν αγριόχειρο.
Και μες στον Άγιο Νικόλα.
Μες στο βάθος. Ο παππούς μου εδώ έκανε τζάδια, μια τζάδια. Ο πέγιος.
Πόσος κόσμος ζούσε μες στον Ακάμα?
Πόσο?
Πόσος άτομα είχε?
Όχι, πόσα άτομα είχε, δεν ξέρω, αλλά είχε πάρα πολλά.
Και στον Άγιο Νικόλα είπες μου για 17 σπίτια.
Ναι.
Ας θυμάσαι τα ήταν που κάμνας, ήταν βοσσίουλοι.
Τα σπίτια τούτα, σαν που του έκανε ο παπάς μου νοικιασμένο, ήταν δικά μας και τα 17. Βάλαμε μέσα τα ζώα, βάλαμε άχυρο, βάλαμε σιτάρκα, κρυθάρκα.
Είναι το και χάλασας, είναι το και πέσας.
Άφηκε το φωτιά. Είμαστε εμείς μέσα και δεν διώξε μας με την αστυνομία. Και μετά επειδή οι Άγγλοι στρατιώτες βλέπανε και που κάνουν ασκήσεις και που κάναν και τις πόρτες και τα παράθυρα και κρούτζαν. Και μια φορά ραπόρταρε με ότι είμαι εγώ μαζί με τον κουνιάδο μου.
Ποιος σε ραπόρταρε ο...
Φωτιά. Και πήγα και έδειξα του υπαστηνόμου ότι σε ένας πόντες και πορτοβέλλες
μες στη φωτιά.
Μες στη φωτιά. Δηλαδή μπορεί να έρθει και κάτω να φέρει και ένα αστυνομικό, να πάρει να ψαπεί, να τα βρει.
Μάλιστα. Okay, for those who this sound Greek, it's actually Greek language in the Cyprus dialect. What he said that actually there are this type of animals present in Akamas, which I will not mention, and that there were 17 houses in the village that he was born, in the settlement that he was born, to be correct, which now do not exist. We can find only just ruins. Also, you can see a typical reconstructed and renovated building that we have in Akamas. Here we can see the other activities that took place in the area. We can see when the lighthouse was built and another license that was given in some geological survey company to check for if there is a possibility to establish a quarry in the area. Also, we can see here the shooting range that the British government used to have in the area. These were rights that derived after the establishment of the Cyprus government, and they were allowed to bombard the area by sea, land, and air till the land goes level with the sea. These images here show on the right we can see the delimitation of the fire shooting range, and they are on the head of the letter we see that what was happening with the how it was licensing these activities. Because of this fire shooting range, we used to have fires, which considered to be one of the most important threats that we have in our forests in general in Cyprus. And for this reason, these old papers show that there were fires in the area due to the shooting ranges of the British, and also that the people was complaining and raising awareness so that this exercise to stop. Additionally, we can see how the people was raising their interest about Akamas. We managed to identify about 30 different groups of which have interest in about what's going to happen in Akamas, from far environmentalists to far developers, let's say. We're trying to manage all these people and bring all the people in one table to discuss, so we have the best thing that we can have for Akamas. Here we can see when the Akamas Peninsula was included in the Natura 2000 network, and it is a community site of community importance. This was done in 2011, and it is a special protection area. This was done in 2009. They have been created management plans for both sites, and Akamas National Forest Park, it's within these Natura 2000 areas and represents the 75% of their total area, talking only about the terrestrial part. Here we can see a map with the geology of the area of Akamas Peninsula. We have almost all the geology that is appearing in Cyprus. It is being represented in a smaller scale in Akamas Peninsula. On the left picture, you can see the area that they were mining magnesium from the Akamas Peninsula. This is the entrance of the shaft. As regards flora, we have 650 native flora taxa in the area, and 43 are endemic, which of them 2 are local endemics. They are found only in Akamas, and this is Centaurea agamantis and Tulipa akamasica. We have 25 types of terrestrial habitats and 2 types of marine habitats of Annex 1. Regarding fauna, we have the most famous species we have in the area is the 2 marine turtles, the Careta careta and the Chelonia midas. We have a large number of reptiles, and we have 9 species of mammals, bats actually. We have 1 invertebrate, the Callimorpha quadribuctaria, 1 crab, which is the Potamius in the riverbeds of the sweet of the water of the rivers we have. And we have 119 birds recorded in the area, which 58 of them breed in the area. It is an important stopover for migratory bird species and important breeding site for endemics. The Forestry Department began his preparing his fair management plan and it finished it in 1988. Far beyond we have any Natura network and before having any awareness about environmental issues. This is Vasos Pandelas, the mentor of our section there, that he undertook to prepare these plans. You can see also that he prepared a list about the flora and species of found in Akamas. And on the right map, you can see the proposal that was within this plan. We also, the Forestry Department also undertook to prepare and establish and has established a botanical garden at Baths of Aphrodite area. You can see the picture in the heart-like picture. Then we have the World Management Plan that was prepared in 1994 by the World Bank. We have a series of ministerial decisions considering Akamas and how to be managed. We have the two plans of the Natura 2000 area, and we have the management plan of the Akamas National Forest Park, which is the last one. And based on this one, we try now to bring all the actions forward. During the whole this process, many life programs were run in the Akamas Peninsula. I will not stay in any details. Our colleagues have mentioned almost all the actions that were replicated also in Akamas area. You can see just some fencing areas we did for vehicles not to be able to trespass the very sensitive biotopes and habitats. And now we have following the guidance of this Akamas National Forest Park management plan, we announced an architectural competition for preparing the places that we could manage visitors more easily. We have to, the competition was won by Anastasiou and Miseri and Associates Limited, an office that is dealing with architecture in Cyprus. We have also one representative of them. Spiros is here with us, and they are doing an excellent work considering the preparation and establishment of these management sites in the area. This is one of the most characteristic sceneries of Akamas. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Antoniou, for your valuable presentation about the National Park of Akamas. Now, I would like to welcome for the last presentation of this session, Dr. Petros Kakouros from Greek Biotopes Wetland Center, which is going to present the results from a recently completed live project to give some information about gaps, challenges, skills, and tools for the management of Natura 2000 forest in Greece. Mr. Kakouros, welcome.
Thank you very much. One small correction is that the project is not actually over. We have another year. We have to take another year to full complete our tasks, since it was we have some bureaucracy problems, as you can understand. So I would like to thank you for the invitation. It's it's a privilege to participate in this very interesting meeting. I must say that in Greek Biotope Wetland Center, we are always very cautious and we very much take attention on the cultural issues when we are working in the natural environment. We are fully aware that, in fact, the Mediterranean ecosystems are more or less cultural ecosystems. The human footprint is very strong, even if sometimes it's not very obvious. Even if the green cover sometimes shadows the past, the human touch is always there. I will proceed fast with my presentation because it's late already. So this project started in 2015. Okay, just a moment. Thank you. A few words about why why it is important the connection between forests and Natura 2000 in Greece. Greece has a very big proportion of the country is forests and forest land. Means that about 50% of the country is covered with woody vegetation, either from freganic vegetation to high forests of boreal character. So 40% of the Greek forests are covered by Natura 2000 sites, either SPA or sites of community interest. And has a percentage of forest land of 60%. That means that the forest, the management of the forests it's a vital component of the management of Natura 2000 areas, and vice versa. It means that the obligations and the opportunities offered by the Natura 2000 regime are essentially important for the management of the Greek forests. Another index of this special relation is that in Greece we have 50 habitat types with the woody vegetation and 35 other habitat types. So it means that the majority of the habitat types Greece has a kind of responsibility are more or less connected with forest management. For those that are not very familiar with forest management in Greece, in Greece it's mandatory that if you want to economically exploit a forest or a forest land, you have to submit a forest management plan to the Forest Service that it should be followed for at least 10 years. The period of for forest management plan is 10 years. And this is something very, very good, but for the other side, means that there are some difficulties, mainly on the finance, of how to finance these, the drafting of the management plan and its implementation, especially for non-government, for non-state forest owners. And this management plan also contains a lot of information and a lot of actions that can be also be supportive or somehow cooperate with the management and the protection of cultural monuments. Back in 2014, there was the first biogeographical seminar in Thessaloniki. It's biogeographical seminars is a process that initiated by the European Commission in order to bring together people working in Natura 2000 areas from the geographical areas of the European Union. Here we are speaking, of course, for the Mediterranean area. The second seminar was held in Cyprus, and it was one of the most very interesting. And the third one finished just about 2 months ago. So in this seminar that has a special focus in Greece, there were some problems that were identified regarding the management of forests in Natura 2000 areas that were, you can see them here. It's a weak dissemination of guidance and knowledge regarding the special management needs in Natura 2000 areas, because as you know, as you can understand from the previous presentations also, Natura 2000 poses some special needs in the management of an area, of a natural area, regardless if it's protected or not. So we have also identified the lack of assistance for cooperation between stakeholders, especially those working in the forest sector, some lack of skills for stakeholders working in forests, and a weak information on visitors regarding the impacts of forest recreation. So the General Directorate of Forests and Forest Environment, in cooperation with Greek Biotope Wetland Center, undertook an initiative to work on this, and they proposed the forest life, and its main tasks were to fill these gaps, to tackle these problems. So the first thing we did in forest life was to perform a needs assessment. We had some ideas about what was happening, of course, but we had to document it. So we conducted a combination of quantitative and qualitative field research with online questionnaires, with interviews and focus groups and in-person communication. And in order to gather all this information, in this slide there is the fourth dot is wrong. Please do not take it into consideration. I will send a correction later on. This research was aiming at these target groups. First of all, the Forest Service personnel, which is the biggest stakeholder regarding forest management in Greece, other state services belonging to the state or to the regions, scientists, private consultants, other non-state organizations like NGOs, non-state forest owners. In Greece, it's about 20 and 25% of the forest land is not belonging to the state, but to other owners, forest cooperatives, resin collection cooperatives, wood processing sector, and visitors, which are collectively, we call all these people that the Greek forest community. And I will present you some of the results, some indicative results of this work. And here you can see the results of what we wanted to learn was the first, what is the current situation? I mean, how people now working in the forest sector gather information, exchange information, communicate to each other, and how they build cooperation and all these things. So one of the questions regarding the access to information, how people gathering information, how well they can gather information. And so here you can see that for this group of stakeholders, you can see, for example, that the best performance in gathering information and access to information, as it was almost sure, are the researchers and the people working in the scientific sector, while the people working in the Forest Service, for example, which is the green light, the green color, not very well shown here, but it's this line, this green line, have not good access to several part of the information necessary for forest management in Natura 2000 areas. And the total score on this question was also not very good. It was sometimes very weak. You can, if you want to see more details. So from this part of the research, we understand that in general there is a need to improve substantially the flow of information to the Greek forest community. Another part of the last part of our research was trying to locate, to understand how people like to communicate to each other. Because we have some ideas also, we have some proposals included in our project, but we had to see the relative importance of these tools and how this will be reflected on the preparation of the tools that we would like to develop. So what we learned, it's that people are more or less traditional. Means that most people use telephone and emails to communicate. Communication through web is not very strong. Even social media had a relatively low score. Just to remind, of course, that we are in 2015, 2016. The research was performed about 5 years ago. Person-to-person communication has also a big score. And what was very interesting is that people like very much to be together, to come together in conferences, meetings, formal or informal. So we have somehow to respond to these preferences and to build our tools in a way that people will be more fond of and have a bigger possibility to use these tools that I will present you later on. Some more results. As I told you before, the knowledge of several issues regarding Natura 2000 is not very sufficient. There are also some entrenched perceptions about what Natura 2000 in fact is. Many people, for example, still believe that Natura 2000 means that the strict protection of an area, which is not like this. There is a significant need for dissemination of scientific knowledge, and this is also because of the language, because a lot of the scientific, a big part of the scientific information is in English or other European languages, and people working in the forest sector are not very familiar to use foreign languages. Best practices are also gather a lot of interest because people would like to have somehow ready solutions, tested and proved solutions to consider them for replication in their areas, to use them in their own problems. And another issue was the reliable and easy access to geodata and databases regarding Natura 2000, but also to other related information. So how we respond to these needs? We respond to the dissemination of guidance, the best practice and the cooperation and all this by developing a collaboration platform for forests. It will be a platform that has a lot of modules that can be used for people working in the forest sector to gather information, to communicate, to develop cooperation, etc. The second one is to work on with seminars and webinars, which are somehow mandatory in the last 1 year and a half, and gaining from this experience, we can say that maybe the future of this kind of work will be like this meeting today, will be the kind of hybrid meetings, webinars that can come together, people that are in a place live and people from big distances that can come all together and cooperate. And another tool that we had in mind and it was from the beginning an idea was to develop a web-based application for small mobile devices that will give fast access to some basic information on forests, promote the Greek forest, so people can go to areas that are not very known, are not very familiar. People are not familiar with some very interesting forests all around Greece, and so some more details about the platform. So the platform has. It will work as a permanent tool in the hands of the Greek Forest Service. It will be in constant interaction with everything that happens in the European Union regarding the forest sector and the Natura 2000, the management of Natura 2000 sites. And it will have, it has already a dissemination tools, means that have electronic libraries, access to information and to database experiences and best practices. It will serve the promotion of new projects, of data that are released, to scientific work, to the forests itself, etc. Information for experts, and all this information will be relevant not only to experts but also to the general public. It was important also for the people, especially of the Forest Service, to have on-time updates about changes on the legal framework working regarding the forest, and not so much the forest law, not the forest framework, but especially what regards the Natura 2000 and what obligations are coming from this, and also the obligations, but also the opportunities for funding, for example. And the character of the platform, or the platform, would be a platform of open architecture, means that can be integrated or receive information and other modules from other platforms, from other relevant infrastructure that is developed these days in Greece and abroad. And also the basic, one of the basic things that will foster cooperation. It will be very, very open to cooperation between the different stakeholders in the forest management in Greece. So here you can see the first, the first page of the platform, which is still in development. It's not finished yet. We're working these days very hard with the people that have undertake the development of CPF. And it has a lot of, all these tools that I mentioned before are already somehow in place, and they are updated and tested on a day-by-day basis.
Sorry, Mr. Kakouros. Sorry,
yes.
I have to interrupt you. Just to inform you that we have already exceeded the available time for the presentation. Just to proceed with the most important things.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I think that I have 3 or 4 slides more. Okay. So here you can see some basic information about the web-based application, really basic information, just for the people to want to know the forests, and then if they want to gain more information, they can go to the CPF or to other web services. And that's it.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your participation and all this information for this ongoing, still ongoing live project. And I hope good luck to continue and complete this.
Thank you very much.
Interesting for the country project.
Can we proceed if there is any question on the presentation of Mr. Kassinos?
For all presentations. This is the last one. Sorry.
Yes, and
so
because we have mentioned the first presentations, and if there is also any presentation on Mr. Antoniou or Mr. Kakouros. No? So in this way we conclude the last session, and we thank everyone who participated to that very interesting green insight, mainly of Cyprus. And we pass the floor to Dr. Flora Karagianni for the closing of the Congress.
So thank you very much, both Charalampos and Nikos, for organizing this last session. I mean, the Department of Forest with the Society of Cypriot Studies. It seems that we finally got to the end of this international conference. I think I have to tell you that, as you can understand, due to all these COVID development issues, organizing an international conference was a real big and difficult task. Finally, the situation allowed us to organize this Ivridic symposium, Ivridic conference, with the participation of many of the participants and speakers in real presence, as well as with the participation of others via all this platform. We heard a lot. We listened to very, very interesting papers during these 3 days. We learned a lot. This conference had one peculiarity. We were together, people representing so different bodies and fields. And this was, from the very beginning, a very challenging issue because it gave us the possibility to start a dialogue between each other. The whole Mo.Na project is a dialogue between nature and culture. We had 46 papers divided in several sessions in which we tried very much to deal with all aspects that were really of our interest within the implementation period, starting from issues related to the protection of environment, in which all this interesting information has been given to all of us regarding, of course, both all this issue that has to do with the climate changes, the challenges of the geological phenomena. We heard a lot about these earthquakes that hit Albania, and not only the raising of water's level in some places that really affected not only our lives in terms of everyday life, but also the antiquities that are hosted and built within the centuries in some of the very important natural places. A lot of interesting things came up, such as proposals and raising awareness of all of us on how the protection of the environment really affects also the protection of the antiquities, and vice versa. In many cases, we've been asking ourselves if the environment really threatens the nature, threatens the antiquities, or the antiquities really affect the preservation of the environment. We are all here to continue this discussion. The Mo.Na project has something like 3 or 4 months in front of us in order to be typically and to proceed to the end of the project. But we consider, I think all of us who really experienced this discussion and this dialogue between these two great major fields, nature and culture, we really think and hope that it will be only the beginning of other activities, of other projects that will go on in the future, in the real future. Of course, as being leaders, we've been discussing a lot about this certification system that is really a very big task to all of us who are interested and really looking forward to contribute to this discussion between the coexistence and the balances between nature and culture. We have a lot of things to do during the next months regarding this certification system in order to be in the position of providing this to the authorities as well as to those who are involved with these issues. One major thing that came up through this all these papers is the role of urban planning, the role of education in raising awareness of in all kinds of fields, either if we speak about blue dimension or green dimension, or if we speak about climate changes or about tourism, even if it is underwater or on the lands. I was very much satisfied listening by many speakers that education and raising awareness is included in several projects, if not in all of the projects that have been presented here. I think that if there is something we can do is continuing exactly this task. We cannot change the world, but at least we can try in our institutions, in our wider areas, in the places where we work, live, and offer our energy to inform people about both the protection and the environment. As Father John said, connections, this is a very big word, connections among different parts, different fields. This is a real big task and a real challenge for all of us. This is not an easy thing, and I speak from the part of someone who is working in the Ministry of Culture. We learn how to deal with things through the field that we all serve. But this project and this symposium, this conference gave us some ideas, some real challenging ideas of how we can extend and how we can collaborate with people and bodies and authorities that come from another field, another aspect of protection, both environment and culture. Of course, the tourism is another factor which is always there. Another challenge to work with the touristic industries in order both to help our sites to be visited by a lot of people, and on the other hand, to protect them from any kind of threats that this vast or minor visibility would cause both to the environment or to the culture. I'm really very grateful to all of the participants who really gave us very important ideas and aspects and really opened our minds in several dimensions and directions as well. First of all, I would really like to thank a lot the scientific committee and, of course, the organizing committee of this conference, all the partners, and let me mention them one by one, who really supervised the sessions of this symposium. And this, I think that it gave to all of us an idea how different bodies can collaborate with themselves, and really in one symposium, in one scientific event, they can all be together, and from each part, everyone can really offer to this discussion a lot. So I would really like to thank the F48 of Antiquities of Cyclades from the part of the Ministry of Culture, the Municipality of Thira, the Hellenic Center for Marine Research, the Municipality of Nesembar, the Society of Cypriot Studies and the Department of Forest, the Institute of Cultural Monuments from Albania, as well as the two bodies that really supported the project, the Ecumenical Patriarchate and the Greek Planners Association. Of course, behind the bodies are people. I mean, if I would mention by one the people that were really involved in all activities of this project, I would really need some more time. But I really, as project manager of this Mo.Na project, I am really grateful to all of the partners for every step of the implementation of this program, which was, I have to highlight this, which almost started within the most difficult period of our era, within COVID period, which meant that a lot of activities had to be replaced by digital ones. Even in this point, we are really very happy because this international conference gave us the opportunity to meet each other again. The first meeting and the only in real presence meeting was held in the beginning of the project in Albania, and now in Greece we had this opportunity to meet each other again. I am really very grateful also to the Ministry of Culture, to the Directorate of the Documentation and Protection of Cultural Goods, and especially to the Director, Ms. Vasso Papageorgiou, who really offered us the opportunity to be hosted here in this place, in this amphitheater of this service, as well as I would really like to thank a lot her colleagues here from the ministry, Mr. Apostolis Mavromatis, Mr. Kostas Bousdoukos, and Yannis Georgopoulos, for providing us with a lot of facilities regarding the implementation of the project here in situ. Not to mention the company Global Events, with which we really met very recently, but we had this extremely interesting and successful collaboration. They organized this, they organized in a very small period of time this hybrid conference. I would really like to thank a lot, and let me mention the names of those who are really all the time of this symposium here in real presence, giving us every solution to every problem that was raised. So let me help Dimitris Paliouras, Theocharis Siderάς, Christos Moraïtis, Αναστάσιος Παπαναστασίου, Παναγιώτης Τεμπελόπουλος, Βασίλης Κόκκινος, Peronzis Dimitrios, as well as Evangelia Vassou for securing us with all the antiseptic procedures that were really necessary since we are organizing this symposium in a real, weird condition in which we had to take under serious consideration every regulation that comes from the COVID. Of course, I would really like to thank a lot my collaborators in the European Center for Byzantine and Post-Byzantine Monuments, starting from Sapfot-Anu, with which you had all this connection, all this communication, all this period of organizing this event, and not only from the very beginning of the program. She was there in order to really manage everything that had to do with the project. Antonios Drossos, the financial manager, who you all know is very, very important for implementation of everything. And our collaborators, let me mention Anastasia Hadjinicolaou, who is present here, and she is for many, many years a real supporter of whatever IKEVIM is doing in terms of the European projects. And of course, let me thank all of you who came from Bulgaria, from Albania, from Cyprus here, not to mention Cyprus, who I am really grateful to both Savasi Ezekiel and Nikos Kassinos who really left their service in such a difficult period with the fires in Cyprus. We are really very grateful for you, not only for being here and giving us these presentations, but also for really supporting the project and implementing so many different things for Cyprus, which, as I said the other day, it was a real surprise for me, this green world of Cyprus. So I am really thankful to all of you who were really present here and who you really attended our conference, to the keynote speakers, to the speakers, and to the coordinators of this session. So if everything goes on well, we will continue our collaboration after this, and we will give the possibility to all, to the people who really followed us, the sessions via our live platform, we will give them the possibility to have the proceedings of this symposium in the next months. So thank you very much.